So you talked about the specificity of New York and Times Square, but was the source material, which is a play, was that set in, where was that set?
This film is based on a stage play called The Kitchen by a British playwright called Arnold Wesker, and it's a play from 1957, and it's set in London originally. But so yeah, I kind of came into this play. I got to know it when I was studying in London. I trained as an actor in London, and in my student years, I worked in a kitchen to support my way as I studied there, and I worked in a place very similar to the restaurant that I ended up creating for the film, a place called the Rainforest Cafe, which is that horrible tourist trap in Piccadilly Circus. But I went in there because they said there were good tips there, which they were, and but it was just a horrible place to work in, and so I kind of that's where I became fascinated by the drama of kitchens and the choreography inside kitchens. But that's also when the time when I first read this play at school, we made some exercise, some scenes from it, and I was like, "Fuck, I know exactly what he's talking about," So yeah, the original play is set in London, but I first directed it in Mexico about 15 years ago now, and I adapted it to New York with the Mexican migrant experience to New York. So this film version is sort of an adaptation of my own stage adaptation. But there's still some of Wesker's spirit and certain pieces of dialogue. There isn't that much. I mean, there's a lot of it that comes from my experiences and from the impros we did with the actors and from. But I think the one thing that remains from Arnold Wesker is he was part of this so-called angry young men generation of playwrights that came to dominate the stage or the kind of the alternative stage in England in the 50s and 60s.
Like John Osborne and those folks, right?
Exactly, John Osborne.
And then had a translation into cinema. I mean, kitchen sink cinema comes from...
Exactly. Exactly, yeah. So I was really fascinated by this generation and this thing of the anger of youth. And I think I wanted to keep that in the main character of Pedro. He's an angry young man. Yeah, there's something inspiring about that energy that I hopefully is still there from Arnold Wesker passed on to Raul.